Welcome back, everybody. We are diving deep today.
Into some fascinating
Oh,
stuff.
yeah, we are going deep into The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy.
Yeah. Just skimming this book, I had so many notes and thoughts. I,
It's one of those books, right?
yeah,
That you're like, wait a minute, my brain, how does this
yeah.
work?
There's a lot packed in here. And it's not just theory or concepts, it's like practical
Yes.
techniques.
Exactly. That's what we're going to be uncovering today, like how one guy used his subconscious to escape a Russian concentration camp.
Really intense stories.
Yeah, so wild. And how about the one where this guy basically manifested $15,000 just by taking a nap?
Yeah, that's a good map.
I know, right? Sign me up for one of those. But it's not just about these crazy stories like, how is this even possible? We're going to break it down and look at the actual techniques that Murphy describes for things like, banishing fear or attracting wealth.
Yeah. You ready to unlock your superpower?
I am so ready. Let's get into it.
All right. So to start off, I think it's good to understand like what we're even talking about when we say subconscious mind. Murphy really breaks down this idea of like the duality of the mind.
Okay, so there's the conscious mind, the one we're using right now to have this conversation.
Exactly. And then there's the subconscious mind humming away sort of behind the scenes.
Okay, so like the iceberg analogy.
Yeah, exactly. You only see the tip, but underneath
There's a lot going on.
there's this massive force.
And we often don't even realize like how much this subconscious part of us is actually controlling. Like I was reading that it manages all of our bodily functions, even when we're sleeping, like heartbeat and digestion.
Even sweating
Yeah, sweating even.
while you're sleeping, the subconscious is working.
Busy little bee down there.
But it's not just this biological autopilot.
Right.
What's really wild is it's also what Murphy calls the creative mind. It's responding to our beliefs and thoughts and actually like shaping our reality.
Okay, so if I'm constantly thinking I'm bad at public speaking, my subconscious is like taking notes and making that my reality.
That's what he's suggesting, and it's where this idea of suggestion becomes really crucial.
Right.
He uses this analogy of a garden. What you plant in your subconscious, through those thoughts and beliefs will grow.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's like whatever I'm feeding my subconscious is going to manifest in my life in some way.
That's the idea, and he has some pretty crazy examples of how susceptible the subconscious is to these suggestions, even ones that we don't like consciously choose.
Right, like that hypnotism example where just the suggestion of an itchy back makes the person start scratching like crazy.
And they can't even control it.
Yeah, it's wild.
The point is the subconscious doesn't analyze or reason in the same way that our conscious mind does.
It just takes things at face value.
Yeah, it's like, okay, if you say so.
Wow, so it's like our subconscious has zero filter. It just absorbs whatever we're putting out there.
And that means we can also feed it positive suggestions.
Okay, so that's where the story about the singer with stage fright comes in.
Exactly. She was so terrified to perform, but by consciously using autosuggestion, just repeating positive affirmations like, I sing beautifully, I am poised and confident, she basically reprograms her subconscious.
And she nails the audition.
He nails it.
That's amazing. It's like proof that we can actually change our reality just by changing our thoughts.
It's powerful stuff. But there's also that story about the man who loses his arm.
Oh, yeah, that one was intense.
Yeah, and it shows how strong the subconscious influence can be without us even realizing it, So desperate to see his daughter healed, he subconsciously suggests to himself that he would give his right arm for her recovery.
And then tragically, he's in this accident. And his right arm is severed.
And incredibly, his daughter makes a full recovery.
Wow, talk about a heavy example.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really makes you wonder, like, what am I focusing on? What am I planting in my subconscious? Because it seems like it really matters.
It does, and it leads us to the most important question. If we have this power within us, how do we actually use it in a constructive way?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. How do we actually harness this power? That's what I want to know. So we know the subconscious mind is powerful, but how do we actually harness that power? It's not like we can just snap our fingers and make things happen right now.
Well, it's not quite that simple, but Murphy does lay out some really specific techniques in the book that make it seem almost like magic.
Okay, spill beans.
Yeah.
What are these techniques?
One that really stood out to me is called the Baudouin technique. And it actually uses something you might have already experienced. Have you ever noticed how ideas seem to just pop up when you're about to fall asleep?
Oh my gosh, all the time. It's like my brain suddenly gets a burst of creativity right before bedtime.
That's exactly what this technique taps into. It suggests that the subconscious mind is most receptive in that drowsy in-between state when your conscious mind is starting to relax its grip.
So it's not about like forcing yourself to stay awake and think hard.
Hmm.
It's more about that relaxed, almost dreamlike state.
Exactly. Murphy tells this incredible story about a woman who used this technique to resolve a really stressful family lawsuit that was going on.
Okay, how did you do that?
So she took her desired outcome, which was a fair and just resolution to the lawsuit, and condensed it into this short 6-word phrase.
6 words?
Just 6 words, and she would repeat it to herself each night as she was drifting off to sleep. No analyzing, no overthinking, just quietly impressing this idea on her subconscious.
And what happened? Did it work?
After about 10 nights of doing this, the situation just miraculously resolved itself in her favor.
That's wild. Just from repeating a 6-word phrase before bed.
It's pretty amazing, right? It really shows the power of that pre-sleep state for influencing the subconscious. But what about when we're wide awake and facing a challenge? Like, what techniques work then?
Yeah, that's a good question because we can't always just take a nap and hope for the best.
True, and that's where autosuggestion comes in. Remember the singer who overcame her stage fright? That's the power of autosuggestion in action.
So it's about intentionally planting those positive suggestions in our subconscious mind, right? Like instead of focusing on what we don't want, we focus on what we do want.
Exactly. It's like choosing the seeds you want to plant in your mental garden. Instead of thinking, I'm going to mess this up, you consciously repeat affirmations like, I am calm, I am confident, I am prepared.
Okay, so it's about being intentional with our thoughts and words and replacing those negative self-talk patterns with positive ones.
Exactly. And the beauty of it is, it's so simple, we tend to overcomplicate things, but the subconscious really responds to clear and consistent messages.
So repetition is key.
Repetition is key. Are there any other techniques for actively reprogramming our thoughts like that?
Oh yeah. Murphy presents a few other methods, each with its own little twist. One that stands out to me is called the affirmative method.
And this one really emphasizes the importance of understanding the truth behind the affirmations you're using. It's
Right.
not just blindly repeating positive phrases.
So it's about internalizing the meaning behind the words.
Exactly. So if you're affirming, I am financially abundant, you need to genuinely believe that it's possible, not just say the words.
It's like you have to embody the belief, not just intellectually understand it.
Yes, exactly. He suggests connecting with the feeling of abundance, visualizing yourself already living in that reality.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like you're convincing your subconscious mind that this is already true for you.
Right. And that makes it more likely to accept the affirmation and start working towards manifesting it in your physical reality.
That's fascinating. What about when we have those really deep-seated negative beliefs that are hard to shake? What can we do then?
That's when the argumentative method can be helpful, and it's a bit more active. It's almost like having a gentle debate with your subconscious mind.
To debate with yourself.
Yeah, it sounds a little strange, but it can be really effective. Let's say you have this limiting belief like, I'm not good enough to get that promotion.
Okay, I've definitely had that thought before.
We all have with the argumentative method. You consciously present evidence to the contrary. You remind yourself of your accomplishments, your skills, your positive qualities, and you essentially build a case for why that belief is false.
It's like you become your own defense attorney, challenging those negative thoughts with positive evidence. I like that.
It's a powerful technique for reframing those limiting beliefs.
Are there any other methods that Murphy suggests?
He also talks about the absolute method, and this one's all about using direct commands to influence the subconscious.
So it's like giving your mind clear instructions. Instead of saying, I hope to be healthy, it would be more like, I am healthy, I am strong, I am vibrant.
Exactly. Murphy compares this method to sound wave therapy, where specific frequencies can actually create changes in physical matter. Similarly, the absolute method uses strong, assertive statements to create shifts in the subconscious mind.
Wow, it's like we're talking about the user manual for our own minds. This is incredible.
I know, right? And there's one more technique I want to highlight, especially since we were talking about the power of the pre-sleep state. It's called the sleeping technique, and it focuses on impressing your subconscious right before you drift off.
So it's like a targeted version of the Bud 1 technique.
You could say that Mercy tells the story of a psychologist who actually healed himself of a lung infection using this technique every night before sleep. He would affirm, my lungs are healthy, my body is strong, I am filled with vibrant energy.
And it worked just from repeating those affirmations before bed.
Within a month, he was completely healed. It's another powerful reminder that our thoughts, especially those we focus on as we drift off to sleep, can have a profound impact on our well-being.
So it's like nighttime is prime time for subconscious reprogramming.
Exactly. But all this talk about healing and abundance makes me wonder, can we really apply these techniques to any area of life?
That's what I'm thinking too. Can we really reprogram our subconscious to attract wealth, find love, or just feel happier overall? Okay, so we've talked about all these techniques for influencing the subconscious, but how do we actually use them to improve our lives? Like, can we really reprogram ourselves to attract more money, find love, or even just feel happier?
Well, the exciting part is that Murphy's book doesn't stop at theory. He actually dives into specific areas where we can apply these principles.
Okay, so like practical applications?
Exactly. And let's start with something we could all use a bit more of: financial abundance.
Okay, money, money, money.
What's interesting is that Murphy suggests is that many people actually block wealth from coming to them without even realizing it.
Wait, really? How so? Is it just that they don't believe it's possible?
That's part of it, but he specifically points out this tendency to criticize and condemn those who are wealthy.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that before.
Yeah.
Like, don't hate on rich people.
And it's not just about being polite, it goes deeper. Remember, the subconscious doesn't judge, it just absorbs. So if you're constantly thinking negative thoughts about money, it's like sending the wrong signal to the universe.
It's like you're telling your subconscious money is bad, rich people are greedy, and then you wonder why you're not attracting wealth.
Exactly. Instead, Murphy suggests cultivating an attitude of appreciation for the wealth of others.
Okay, so like be happy for people who are doing well financially.
Right. And he also emphasizes the importance of using positive affirmations. Things like, I am a money magnet, or wealth flows into my life easily and effortlessly.
So we're basically reprogramming our subconscious to see wealth as something positive and attainable.
Precisely. It's about shifting those internal beliefs from scarcity to abundance. He also talks about clearing out any limiting beliefs, those deep-seated thoughts that tell you you're not worthy or capable of financial success.
Okay, so it's not just about thinking positive thoughts. It's also about getting rid of those negative beliefs that are holding us back.
Right. It's like clearing the weeds from the garden before you plant new seeds.
Are there any stories in the book that show how this works in real life?
Oh, yeah. There's this great one about a young man searching for his father's hidden will. He'd been looking everywhere for weeks and was starting to feel really desperate.
Okay, so high-stakes situation.
Totally, and that's when he remembers the sleeping technique we talked about earlier.
So he decides to use it to find the will.
Well, he didn't focus on the will specifically, but on receiving an answer each night before sleep, he would repeat the word answer, 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 just impressing this desire on his subconscious.
And it worked?
The next morning, he woke up with this strong feeling that led him to an old trunk he'd totally overlooked before.
And the will was inside.
The will was inside.
That's amazing. It's like his subconscious mind solved the problem for him while he was sleeping.
That's the power of these techniques. They tap into that incredible problem-solving ability of the subconscious mind. And we've talked about finances, but another area where these principles can be applied is relationships. Murphy actually talks a lot about marital harmony.
Okay, relationships. That's a big one. I think a lot of people struggle with that. So what does Murphy have to say about it?
Well, one of his key insights is that a lot of the conflict in relationships actually stems from a lack of understanding of this subconscious mind.
Okay, so like we're projecting our own stuff onto our partner.
Exactly. We tend to project our own fears and insecurities, creating these self-fulfilling prophecies.
So if you're constantly worried that your partner is going to leave you, you might actually be making it more likely to happen.
That's the idea. But the good news is we can also use our subconscious to create more loving and harmonious relationships. Murphy talks a lot about the power of visualization, imagining the qualities you desire in a partner, and feeling the joy of being in that happy, fulfilling relationship.
So it's not just about finding the right person, it's about cultivating the right mindset and beliefs about relationships.
Exactly. He tells this really powerful story about a woman who used this technique to actually attract her ideal husband.
Okay, so she manifested her soulmate.
She did, but it wasn't overnight. She had gone through some bad breakups and disappointments, but she refused to give up on her vision.
So persistence is key.
Absolutely. She kept visualizing the kind of man she wanted to be with. She felt the joy of that loving partnership, and she consistently affirmed that her soulmate was on his way.
And eventually it happened.
It did. It just goes to show that even in love, we have more control than we realize.
All of these examples are so inspiring. It's like we really do have this untapped power within us. But with all this talk about wealth, love, and success, makes me wonder about happiness. Like, can we actually reprogram ourselves to just be happier?
Murphy was a big believer that happiness is a choice. It's an inner state that we can cultivate through conscious effort, And he challenges that common belief that happiness depends on external factors like money, possessions, or relationships.
Yeah, it's not about if I just had this, then I'd finally be happy.
Exactly. He calls out those if only statements we all make, like if I had $1 million, I'd be happy, or if I got that promotion, then I'd finally be content.
I've definitely been guilty of that kind of thinking.
We all have, but Murphy argues that true happiness comes from within. It's about cultivating that positive mindset, focusing on gratitude, and choosing to see the good in every situation.
So it's about shifting our perspective, training ourselves to see the glass half full instead of half empty.
Right. He reminds us to focus on those whatsoever things are true, honest, just pure lovely and of good report. And just like with attracting wealth or love, we can use those positive affirmations to reprogram our subconscious to experience more joy and contentment.
It's like we have this power to choose happiness regardless of our circumstances.
And that's a really powerful realization.
It really is. Thinking about all this talk about the power of our thoughts, it
Yeah.
makes me realize how much control we actually have over our own experience. But it's not just about us, right? Our thoughts also affect the people around us.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Murphy dedicates a whole section to what he calls harmonious human relations, and he explains how the subconscious plays a key role in all our interactions with others.
Okay, so if I'm constantly judging and criticizing people, is that negativity actually affecting me too?
That's exactly what he's saying. Murphy puts the golden rule in a psychological context, suggesting that when we judge others negatively, we're essentially judging ourselves.
Wow, it's like that saying, what you resist persists.
Exactly. And he actually shares this kind of extreme example of a man who developed ulcers because he would get so angry reading the daily newspaper.
That's intense.
It is, but it really shows how our reactions to the world around us can impact our physical health.
So it's important to cultivate compassion and understanding for others, but also for ourselves.
Exactly. And Murphy really emphasizes practicing forgiveness, letting go of any resentment or anger we might be holding on to.
Forgiveness, that seems to be a big theme throughout the book. Forgiving others, forgiving ourselves, letting go of those negative emotions that are weighing us down.
Absolutely. It's essential for experiencing that true inner peace. And it also ties into another important theme, conquering fear.
Yeah, fear definitely holds a lot of people back from living their best lives.
It does. And Murphy reminds us that most fears are learned. They're not actually based in reality. He emphasizes the power of facing those fears head on, even if it's just taking small steps outside of our comfort zone.
Like baby steps.
Baby steps, exactly. And he tells this great story about a businessman who was terrified of elevators.
Oh no, that's tough.
Right, can you imagine? But he eventually overcame this fear by using this visualization technique where he would bless the elevator in his mind.
Bless the elevator.
Yeah, he'd picture it working perfectly, bringing joy to everyone who rode it. And eventually he was able to ride it himself without any fear.
So he reprogrammed his subconscious to see the elevator as a positive thing instead of something to be afraid of.
Exactly. And this technique can be applied to any fear, whether it's public speaking or fear of failure, or even the fear of aging. Murphy challenges that common belief that aging is a time of decline and encourages us to see it as a time of wisdom and new beginnings.
He had some great examples of people like George Bernard Shaw, who was incredibly active and productive well into his 90s.
It's a powerful reminder that we're not limited by our age, and life can continue to be fulfilling no matter how many candles are on the cake.
Wow, this deep dive has been a whirlwind. It's incredible to think that we have this power within us just waiting to be unlocked.
Yeah, it's a lot to process, but remember, the key takeaway here is that you have the power to shape your reality.
By understanding how our subconscious mind works, we can use it to create the life we want.
Exactly, and I encourage everyone to keep exploring this fascinating subject. Maybe even pick up a copy of Joseph Murphy's book, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. You might be surprised at what you discover.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the subconscious mind. It's been a truly fascinating journey.
It has.
And we'll see you next time for another adventure in the world of ideas.